All right, so let's get right into it. We're going to look at this one key moment, a real turning point for a young man who's basically at the end of the world. And what's so interesting here is that it's a moment where being the best fighter, the most skilled guy in the room, it's not just useless, it's actually the cause of all his problems. This is really the story of a leader's very first and maybe his toughest trial.
And this quote, man, this line gets right to the heart of the whole conflict. You've got Jon Snow, who's an amazing swordsman, right? But he's totally alone, an outcast at the wall. And the reason why? Well, as he's about to find out the hard way, it has absolutely nothing to do with his skill. It's all about his attitude.
So, that brings us to the big question we're tackling here. How does a guy who's so talented, but also so just miserable and alone, how does he finally learn that crucial lesson? The difference between just being a good fighter and actually being a good man. And trust me, it's a lesson that's going to shape everything that comes next for him.
All right, first up, let's head to the training yard at Castle Black. And you got to picture this place. It's cold, it's brutal. It's where boys are supposed to be forged into men for the Night's Watch. And right in the middle of it all, Jon Snow is basically at the top of the class.
I mean, when it comes to pure skill with a sword, Jon is just on another level. He's untouchable. Day in and day out, he just systematically takes down every single recruit his trainer, Ser Alliser Thorne, throws at him. No question about it, he's the best.
But here's the crazy part, the paradox of it all. Every single win in that training yard just pushes him further and further into isolation. He's walking alone, he's eating alone, and you can tell he just looks down on these other guys, thinks they're all clumsy and useless. And believe me, the feeling's definitely mutual.
So you'd think he'd get some praise, right? Nope. All his victories get him is mockery, especially from his own master-at-arms. Ser Alliser gives him that sneering nickname, Lord Snow. It's this constant, nasty reminder that his fancy noble blood means absolutely nothing here. Or worse, that it actually makes him a target.
Okay, so moving on. To really get why Jon is so bitter, you have to understand the massive shock he's dealing with. The Night's Watch he pictured in his head? Yeah, it's nothing. And I mean nothing like the reality he's found himself in.
Just look at the difference here. He had this dream of joining this honorable order, earning glory, finally finding a place where he belongs. But the reality? It's a frozen wasteland, a dumping ground for criminals and outcasts, cold walls, and even colder people. He came north looking for brothers in arms, and instead, he's stuck in what's basically a glorified prison.
And to make things worse, even his own family, his uncle Benjen, gives him nothing. No warmth, no comfort. He treats Jon just as coldly as everybody else, basically telling him, your name doesn't matter here. For Jon, you can just imagine, it must feel like a complete and total betrayal.
So with all this anger and resentment just simmering under the surface, you just knew it was going to blow. It was inevitable. And sure enough, after another day of getting shown up by Jon in the yard, a group of recruits corners him in the armory. And all that isolation, all that frustration, it finally boils over into an all-out brawl.
And that brings us to our next part. The fight gets broken up by the armorer, a guy named Donald Noy. But see, he's not just there to stop a scuffle. Oh no. He's about to drop some truth bombs that are going to completely change the way Jon sees everything.
And this is so crucial. Jon tries to play the victim, right? He complains, they hate me because I'm better than them. But Noy just cuts right through that self-pity. He points out the real problem. It's not your skill, kid, it's your arrogance. You act like a little lordling, and that's why they can't stand you.
And this right here, this is the core of the whole lesson. Noe basically forces Jon to see the world from their perspective. He's like, look, these guys, their fathers were farmers and poachers. They never had a fancy master-at-arms like you did. Heck, most of them probably never even held a real sword before coming here. So Jon's skill, it's not because he's naturally superior. It's because he's had incredible privilege. And every time he shows off, he's basically rubbing their noses in it without even realizing. And then Nori hits him with this one final, just devastating question. And with those words, Jon's pride is just shattered. Instantly. All that satisfaction he got from winning, it just curdles into shame and guilt.
So, right at this moment, while Jon is just reeling from this, grappling with this heavy new reality, something happens. A piece of news arrives that turns out to be the perfect catalyst to push him to change. He gets summoned by the Lord Commander, the big boss, and Jon's mind immediately goes to the worst possible place. He's terrified. He's thinking it has to be terrible news from home, maybe something happened to his family, or maybe
Maybe they found his Uncle Benjamin's body. But the letter, it's the exact opposite of what he feared. It's the best news he could have possibly gotten. His little brother Bran, who's been in a coma for what felt like forever, he woke up. And it's this wave of pure joy and relief washes over Jon. And that feeling, that sudden hope, gives him the clarity he needs to actually do something with what he just learned.
And now we get to see the change. He doesn't wait. He doesn't hesitate. He takes that tough lesson from Noi, combines it with this incredible joy about his brother, and he immediately starts putting his new perspective into action. This is it. This is the moment a leader is born, and you can see it happen in 3 quick steps. First, he shows humility. He actually goes and finds Gren, the guy he hurt, and apologizes. Step 2, generosity. He offers to teach them, to share what he knows, instead of just beating them with it. And finally, step 3 is about connection. When Ser Alliser tries to mock him again, Jon flips it. He uses his wit not to push people away, but to bring everyone together.
And what do you know? It works! The whole hall just erupts in laughter. And for the very first time, they're laughing with Jon, not at him. He is the source of camaraderie, not conflict. I mean, in just a few seconds, he turned the guys who hated him the most into his first real friends, his first allies at the wall.
But, and this is a huge but, while he's solved one problem, he's just created a brand new one, and this one is way more dangerous. See, Ser Alliser Thorne, he doesn't see a boy growing up. He sees a threat. He sees defiance. And those chilling final words from him make one thing crystal clear. Jon Snow may have passed his first test, but in doing so, he just walked straight into a much, much bigger fight.